This may look like a strange load, but this is my traveling sawmill now. And I'll explain that in a few minutes as we put it together and do some sawmilling. Today I'm going to come out and finish up this project of cutting some lumber out of this fallen tree. I practiced on the other side the other day, so got a few of the bugs out of the system, and I've got a lot to learn about this Granberg Mini-Mill that I'm going to be using. First thing I need to do is get all these stubs off, and I want to shave off the top to make it a little bit flat on top. I'll just have to eyeball that, but you'll see why it's important in a minute. Flatten this off on top for the next operation. I just used a freehand cut. Tried to keep it as level as I could, but it doesn't have to be perfect, just close. This 2x6 with this rail attached, part of the Granberg operation, will now attach onto here. And when I have it all leveled up, the saw will go on like this, and when it's all right, we run the saw and we just push it through. So we'll get that set up now. Leveling of this board is what I found you really want to be fussy with. I've just been using this little level, and what I've done is I anchor my 2x6 down with two big deck screws. You could use nails, but the deck screws allow me to loosen and tighten and to put a shim under here to bring it up to exactly level. And I've also found out that you want to make sure that you've got a real solid connection so that when you put the chainsaw on, there's all that vibration and running, that nothing shifts. Because you want to keep this perfectly level so you've got a perpendicular cut, and as you move across perpendicular perfectly each time, you'll have a piece of lumber that's the same thickness all the way down. If you mess up on this level at all, you're going to kick your blade out and you're going to end up with some weird shaped lumber. Now that our first side slab is taken off, it's a matter of taking our screws out and moving our guide board over a specified width. I'm going to shoot for 1.5 inch planks is what I'm after. I've moved my board over, and I measure from my board to my other cut is exactly 2 inches. And I know that because of where my rail is situated and where the chainsaw is going to cut the kerf, I'm going to end up with an 1.5 inch piece of lumber. This is where you get to see how you're doing. See, if we've done it right, if we've kept this level and this, then it'll be perpendicular using the Granberg Mini-Mill, and our boards will end up the same width all the way through. Now that one is just, it is right, it might be a 30-second off at the most, but I'm very satisfied with that. Now I'm going to leave this board attached as I go across, I'm going to leave them, and then at the end, when I get over to here, I might flip my guide board around, and then I can use these. I'll nail these boards together, and then I can use that surface to mount the board. Otherwise, when you get way over here, you start running out of room, and you got to start shimming a lot on your, keep your board up. You can see as we've moved across with this Granberg Mini-Mill that our leveling and our guide board on top, as we move across, suddenly we start losing any contact to work with. So it starts getting tougher, and you got to start to improvise or think of ways to make that work. To make this cut work, I just put a lag bolt in there, and I had to have some upward pressure to level that. Though that's not the best thing, but I'll have to make sure it doesn't slip. But it's solid, so it should get me by this cut. Since I've run out of wood over here to put my guide board on, I'm trying this method of using this board, and I pulled the pieces together and nailed them. So my saw kerf will be down here, so I will not hit that nail. I turned my guide board around. Now what I'll do is I will just pull the saw along this way going that way, because it's set up differently with the board flipped around. Or I could do a plunge cut at the far end and then push it the same way, but I think I'll just gonna pull it for now. What I want these for is floorboards for the cabin, where some of them are getting punky and they're starting to snap. Cut them 1.5 inches thick. I think with the support every 3 or 4 feet, they'll be fine. Got a little spike to cut off that one, but got quite a few board feet. When I get them back to the cabin, I'll stack them up on a rig of some sort, and then I'll cut them to width. Cut off the excess bark here. Try to get as many inches across as I can of nice clean wood. As I finish up my time here, I'm going to stack this lumber that I cut so it'll dry. I'll put a few pieces of light wood underneath, shim it so that it'll air out really well while I'm gone. I would like to say that I'm very impressed with the way my Granberg Mini-Mill worked. There's a few things I learned that I'll do a little different next time. One thing is, instead of using the Phillips head screws for my anchoring and evening this up, I'll get some good Torx head screws. And another thing, I've seen Sean James use, I'll put a screwdriver bit in here. I spend a lot of time taking screws in and out, and I think that if I did this, it would save me some energy and a lot of time. And I'd also like to find a better way, maybe a turnbuckle here, something make it a little faster to be leveling this out all the time. But that's something I'm going to work on in the future. One thing I did learn is that when I set this up, I missed one setting that I should have taken care of, and that is, and I'm glad I brought this square with me now, because I did not check to make sure that my bar was perpendicular to my guide board, and it wasn't. And that didn't make a lot of difference, you'd cut along and you would get really good wood, nice and even, as long as you kept going across, pulling the saw the same way. But when I flipped the saw around and pulled it the other way, I messed up, because I'm cutting like this all the time, and that's fine, but then when I turned it around, I ended up compounding the mistake of this not being perpendicular. So that's something that there's 2 bolts on here, and you loosen them, and that allows you to set this up so your blade's perpendicular. When I come back next fall and those boards have dried down, and the goal is to start replacing some of the floorboards in the cabin, I'll lay them out, I'll put my guide board down, and then I can trim off the bark, and I'll try to keep the maximum width on each board as I trim them up. I was able to get my homemade cart to where that tree had fallen in the woods, and it made it really nice. I was able to take advantage of the fact that that tree was anchored where it fell over out of the root ball, and at the tip of the tree also had that end of the tree solid, and so I was able to set my apparatus up, my mini Granberg mill, and cut it right in the woods, leave all the excess wood out there, plus have that wood anchored solid as I cut. So the wagon worked out great. I would just as soon cut out in the woods like that rather than haul the log back here and then mess with the log that wants to shift and move around on me.